Welcome, Jayshree. It's an honor to have you here with us today. And I'm very happy that you have taken some extra time hours, especially it's because it's an odd hour there. It's like midnight and maybe past midnight in the US, and you're still with us. It's a great effort, and thank you for taking this time out. I like to welcome her, and I also like to tell the audience that we are observing all the norms as prescribed by the Ministry of Home Affairs, given the Zoom bombing and the recent hacking activities by the some miscreants in the world on Zoom. So we have taken all precautions necessary, and we're trying to see that everything goes well. We're going to have this half-an-hour session, and in which we would have the interview for about 15-20 minutes, about 20 minutes or so, and then we'll open the house for question answers for about 15-20 minutes. We may extend it for a 5 or 10 minute zone, depending on the kind of questions which come forth. I'm very happy that all of you have joined. This is an initiative taken by the Institute to bring in positivity in and trying to bring out what are the essence of life and growth, given the fact that there has been, and we felt that there has been a lot of negativity in the last 2.5, 3 years around the world because of various factors, one after the other. So we thought that we would like to see more positivity come out, and because there is always a day after a night, and there is something one must look forward to. So we thought to start this series, and we wanted people to come up and share their life experiences to people who have had 3 decades, 4 decades of work experience and work-life experience, seeing the world go up and down, seeing the economies go up and down, seeing all seasons, all colors of life. So based on their life experiences, we thought we would like them to express their views on what we feel about life and growth in their own perspectives, their own divisions. Since you coming from the US, later on at the end, maybe I like an input on how life is shaping up in New York, or if it doesn't crop up in between the discussion, but that is there. Jayshree Pandya, I've known her for good over 20-25 years now. We've interacted on various forums. She's been very kind to interact with me, take my views on various issues, on even on an online channel which she runs, which she broadcasts on in the risk from. In fact, one of my interviews which she did recently on the Aadhaar card and the consequences thereof on almost an hour, she wrote a piece on in Forbes, where she's a consulting editor. She writes frequently for Forbes US, and that got covered there, trying to bring out the picture of how Aadhaar can work to benefit all of us at large and the kind of risk which it entails. Apart from that, she started this risk group, which is headquartered in Texas, but has a huge operation in New York City, where she is based. And then it covers almost all aspects of risks. And I believe there are more than 200 plus sessions she has hosted in the domain of risk, looking at it from different angles, from cybersecurity, from global, from politics, and so on and so forth. And each one of us lives in different kinds of risks. We have also seen that she has been a founder and chief science officer for HRDM, which is based out of New York. I'm sorry, Jayshree, you'll have to give the full name of HRDM, which I was unable to get, and I didn't want to put it wrong. She's also authored the book called Geopolitics of Cybersecurity, a very interesting book, which is there, and on cybersecurity issues and how the geopolitical rules play. I think it should be there in almost all universities and management schools, because given the fact the way cybersecurity is becoming a key component of our lives, it is no longer an option, but something which we have to live with. And there is geographical, demographic, structural, technological, and political structure which room around her. So, this is a little brief about Jayshree. You'll hear more from her in the discourse. I'd also request her to kindly introduce herself for a second or two, giving outlay as to what does the risk group does, because it's important for all of us to understand how the risk group works and what kind of good work she's doing for over 3 decades now. I leave it to Jayshree, and then we'll begin the session.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Aman. Delighted to be here. My name, as Aman mentioned, is Jayshree Pandya. I am the founder and CEO of Risk Group LLC. Risk Group is a collective strategic security risk research organization, community, and a platform. And HRDN is a high-risk data networking organization. That company focuses on the data security risk, and it's based in the New York area. So greetings, everyone. The progress we have made as a species is historic. Our intense desire to explore the unknown beyond our known ecosystem of cyberspace, aquaspace, geospace, and space is shaping the course of human evolution. And it will continue to do so as long as new ideas, imagination, and innovation keep emerging. There is no doubt today that over the years, understanding of the universe has advanced due to the great efforts we have put into advancing science and technology. The enormous advances in science and technology, especially astrophysics, astronomy, artificial intelligence, robotics, and quantum physics, have brought us on a genuine path towards becoming an interplanetary species. Moreover, the world is becoming much smaller because we have created an entirely man made space, cyberspace, that has connected billions of people from across nations and has also connected aquaspace, geospace, and space. Also, it has empowered individuals, groups, nation states, and has democratized the innovation in the process. Now, when we evaluate the advances in science, technology, and medicine, especially advances in immunotherapy, genetic engineering, regenerative medicine, nanotechnology, biotechnology, and more, we understand how they have collectively advanced human health and increased our lifespan. Now, in the backdrop of all these advances, one unique ability that we have achieved that stands out today, especially when the world is on a lockdown due to COVID-19 pandemic, is our enormous ability that has brought us on the doorstep of where evolution is no longer driven by natural processes of mutation or even natural selection. Instead, it is on its way to be the tools and technology that has given us power to create an entirely new species of human beings. In the coming years, we will see other species of humans walking around us that may have entirely different genomes, entirely different physiology and traits than most of us. This will be the new normal. As a result, pandemics as a portal to human evolution will be history in the coming years. Humans will not need to depend on the crude way of evolution. Perhaps this could be our very last pandemic. Now, the very fact that we are no longer confined to what nature must offer is historic and huge. The advances in science and technology have brought us so close to the capability to create even living things. We have reached a point where the tools and technology used to define and design entire human and non-human genome have caught up to our ability to construct them. In the coming years, we will be able to design and construct any cell, organism, or any biological species we want with a growing selection of genomes. So the time is almost here where the ability to create or manipulate life seems restricted only by our imagination. While what nature has given us is still the foundation to our natural biological ecosystem, we are now going to be able to build on this foundation and create a man-made synthetic bioecosystem of our desire and definition.
Sure.
While each new technology innovation brings progress for our species, it also historically brings us power for warfare due to its economic and security implications. The enormous innovative power that progress in science and technology has given us is shifting the power dynamics away from the select few across nations to many. It is even moving away entirely from humans to algorithms, redefining the very criteria of and thereby threatening the foundations for global peace and security. As a result, the coming years will see rising tensions within and between countries. The reason behind that is and will be the imminent restructuring of the systems and processes at all levels. While cyberspace has triggered this fundamental transformation, the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the needs of redefining and redesigning systems at all levels. My latest book, Geopolitics of Cybersecurity, focuses on the rapidly emerging technological transformation from cyberspace that is fundamentally altering aquaspace, geospace, and space. Now, in its size, scale, strength, and scope, the technology triggered transformation that is emerging from cyberspace is unlike anything ever experienced before in any of the prior industrial revolutions. The speed of the current ideas, innovations, and breakthroughs emerging from cyberspace has no historical precedent and is fundamentally disrupting almost every component of a nation. While there is no easy way to compute how the ongoing cyberspace triggered transformation will unfold, one thing is clear: the response to its security must be collective. Now, when cyberspace fundamentally alters aquaspace, geospace, and space, there is a need to understand the security-centric evolutionary changes facing the human ecosystem. So the book answers questions like, what is the knowledge revolution, and should we be concerned about the dual-use nature of digital technologies, the do-it-yourself movement, and the democratization of destruction? And what are the implications of fake news and information warfare on global politics? Are we being surveilled? And is cyberspace, access to cyberspace a human right? And how do we govern cyberspace? So the book, Geopolitics of Cybersecurity, works to answer these questions amidst a backdrop of increasing global competition, mistrust, disorder, and conflict. Now, conversation about cyberspace and technology are inextricably linked to broader conversations affecting each one of us from across nation, from trade policy and digital autonomy to cyber warfare and the weaponization of artificial intelligence. Ultimately, how nations handle these issues and conflicts will determine the fate of both cyberspace and humanity.
Sure.
As a result, we need a new way of doing things. We need a new way of life that can weather all kinds of crises. And for that, we need to build resilient systems. While each nation is focused on defining and designing national security in narrow terms, our focus should be on collective security. Our focus should be on protecting the future of humanity. It is essential to note that so far, we did not have the technological capability to define or design or even develop the needed collective security systems in the past. However, now we are equipped with the tools and techniques to imagine our successful collective future. The reason is surviving as a species is a complex multidimensional process. Humanity has survived so far based on our group survival strategy. Now, while we are used to living in a tribal mode based on our nationality and ethnicity, religion, nation state, ideology, and so much more, it is time we evaluate if we continue living in a standard mode of tribalism, what will we gain and what will we lose? So, as long as we exist in the tribal version of our survival strategy, every new disruptive technology, every new pandemic will also bring us the power of self-destruction. Since emerging technologies have dual use, and because we still live in the mode of tribal thinking, every discovery and every new invention, first and foremost, becomes a weapon. We have witnessed a world with weapons that can eliminate life on planet Earth, from nuclear to chemical to biological and autonomous weapon system to now electromagnetic weapon systems and more. The list of technology that can destroy humanity keeps growing rapidly. As a result, we are all living a paradox. There is no doubt that we are facing overwhelming global challenges as a species. Yet it is important to recognize that if we did not create cyberspace and if we did not build on the layers of cyberspace, we could today be facing existential risk at the moment because of this pandemic. As we
Sure.
all know by now, an outbreak of viral pneumonia centered around Wuhan, China, is a full-blown pandemic impacting every nation, India, United States, and pretty much every single nation. The coronavirus outbreak is a terrible human tragedy at all levels. It is not just a health crisis of immense proportion, it is also an economic and security crisis that is shaking the foundation of many nations' existence. The impact of the shaking of the economic pillars of nations' economy and security is being felt by everyone, everywhere. Now, with the rapid spread of COVID 19, there is enormous uncertainty for nations and all of their components at all levels. So, irrespective of individuals and entities across nations, a million questions are racing through everyone's minds today. In this unprecedented new global reality, there is going to be a dramatic restructuring of the fundamentals of economic and social order in which humans, businesses, society, and economy have traditionally operated. So, how exactly this pandemic crisis driven restructuring unfolds depends on our understanding of the meaning of life and growth. It is our ability to re engineer and recreate ourselves and our ecosystem that will allow us to overcome our limitations and will be a major contributing factor to the survival of our species. We want traits that may make us more radiation resistant for our coming tomorrow. This is something we want to do if we ever want to live in spaces beyond Earth, if you want to colonize Mars and many other planets. We also want traits that can give us the ability to breathe under the water. We want traits that will give us the ability to turn on and off our genes and gene expression based on all our needs. We want traits that can give us the ability to communicate thoughts without any computer interface. We want traits that would allow us to communicate with other living species. We want many, many such new traits. So let us focus on developing these needed traits to changing the meaning of life as we know it. Let us focus on the future of humanity. We can either step forward into meaningful growth or stay where we are. We can grow in many different ways. But the essence of all growth starts with the willingness to change for the better. Now, as we go through life and all the obstacles and challenges it brings to us, we form many opinions and feelings and various situations based on our past experiences, our values and beliefs that we hold. However, many times, like now, we are faced with situations that are actually growth opportunities in disguise. We need to be able to realize that there is an opportunity to change our species for the better. Each pandemic has made us stronger as a species, and this pandemic will be no different. For that to happen, we need to be united as a species in our efforts to first and foremost understand how to stop the pandemics and solve the tortuous path of our evolution. For that, we need to keep our eyes on the problems facing humanity. I hope that humanity can count on each one of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayshree, for that introduction. And, I had, as I said, outlined certain few basic questions about life and growth and the essence of it. So what do you, based on your life experiences, feel are the key factors which define the essence of life and growth?
In the United States, as we all see right now, based on our political ideology, the country is divided. And individuals and businesses, everybody is trying to come up with new ways of doing things. We are seeing a lot of innovation happening. One great thing that we have witnessed it when we witnessed the crisis in terms of not having enough face mask or not having enough ventilators, we saw many innovators that came and came up with such unique solutions that it just gives you so much gratitude that humanity is at the best when there is a need, when there is a crisis, everyone is stepping up. So we have seen some examples of greed, and we have also seen some mostly good examples where we feel good that nobody is trying to take advantage of the crisis, but everybody is trying to survive. But this particular pandemic is very unique, and the reason I'm saying is that as most of us know that our human DNA is made up of more than 10% of DNA that has come from viruses. So every time a viral infection happens, it leaves behind a portion of their DNA.
Correct.
So our genome is made of viral, genome. But this particular virus is, proving to be very challenging, and there is a lot of fear because there are a lot of people who think that the body is not developing immunity. So there are a lot of, challenges that has come with this virus, and that there is not enough transparency. So we are struggling right now in how to come up with a good drug therapeutic solution or a vaccine solution.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of, in fact, I'm associated with one organization that is working on identifying a drug molecule that can, be effectively tested, go into clinical trial for the COVID-19. And I'm also designing, I myself have designed a system. I want to make sure that, if it is in my power, that this will be the last pandemic, because we have tools and technology that we can use to insert the genes and to get the traits that we want. We don't have to go through this, a calamity of a pandemic this way. We don't have to destroy our, national security and economic security and health security just to get some, added traits. So I am trying to design a system, and hopefully if I am able to do it, then we will never see another pandemic again. So there are a lot of great, innovations happening. There are a lot of people coming forward, a lot of innovators coming forward. There are more than, 70 drugs that are, in process of being tested in clinical trials. So we will see something good coming out.
True. So if I understand correctly, you're pointing out to innovation and the way we balance risk in being the key factors when it comes to understanding life and growth. There's also some saying which I read through which says growth is the only evidence of life. Do you believe in this particular thing, that growth is the only evidence of life?
Yes, your voice, Aman, is a little bit blurred, so I'm not, your question?
Yeah, I'll speak again. Is growth the only evidence of life?
Of course not. Growth is not the only evidence of life. There is so much more. For example, if we look at virus, is it a living organism or is it a non-living organism? Is it even alive? Or, I mean, that itself is, gives us a really beautiful indication about what is life. Because virus on its own cannot survive. It's just a fragment of a DNA or RNA and a protein capsule, around that surrounds it. On its own, it's just a dust particle.
True.
We breathe through it, we breathe, and it falls on our, it's everywhere. There are trillions of microorganisms inside us, outside us. So on its own, it's not an organism, that is alive, but inside a human host or any other living species, it is, fully alive organism. So yes, the growth is not the only, way to say that the meaning of life, but we also have to grow in the sense that when, for example, if we talk about this pandemic, now everybody is ordered in pretty much every country, everybody is asked to stay at home. Now all the businesses are shut down, all the industries are shut down, all the supply chain, the entire supply chain is shut down because the factories are not operating, the trucks are not operating, ships and planes, and nothing is operating. So how do you get your supplies? How do you get all the necessary essentials for a food supply chain or any other? You cannot get that, because you cannot get out of the house. So you cannot sit still thinking that, okay, everything is on a standstill. Our country, we cannot go out. So what are we supposed to do? You did not sit down, just like that. Your institute is shut down. You are not able to go out. But that did not mean that you stopped growing. You thought of an idea that let me start the webinar series. That shows your spirit of, innovation, your spirit of, coming up with new ideas, that irrespective of whether you are able to go out of the home or not, you came up with a way of, continuing the education.
True.
So that shows that, you came up with new ideas, you came up with new imagination, and the tools and technology were available for you to be able to get through this. So we should focus on creating new tools and new technologies and come up with new systems and new ideas. So we don't, irrespective of what happens in the coming tomorrow, our life will not be on the standstill. We
True.
can, continue. We have to build resilient systems.
True. In the last 3-4 days in the sessions which I've had, 5-6 sessions which I've had, different speakers outlined different components. Like yesterday, there was a lot of focus on human capital development. Then we had a politician who spoke about the representing the current ruling party, speaking about that the life is not a question of a balance sheet. We should not look at it from a profit loss statement perspective. Then we had a gentleman who was a professor at JNU who spoke about togetherness, collectivism, working together to resolve problems. Then we had a government officer who said, the police is coming out with a human face, not only in the country, but around the world, which is never the case. Whether we look at Hollywood movies or Indian movies or other movies, we always have this negative image of the police coming out, whereas we see that human face coming out. Now, given some of these views, which we have seen in the last couple of days, coming out from our webinars of various experts from across the streams, how do how can one enhance human capital or understand and benefit from the essence of life and growth? What is your take on that?
Again, I'm not having very clear understanding of the question you are asking because of
I was
the
saying
blurred voice.
Yeah,
but
let me repeat again. As I said, many of the speakers who have spoken in the past few days pointed out different aspects of life in terms of the way, like yesterday we had Dr. Rao who spoke about human capital enhancement. Then we had the politician who spoke about life is not being a balance sheet. He said it's not a profit and loss account and you must look at it beyond that. Then we had a professor from JNU who said we need to work together, we need to collaborate in doing activities, and that's what we're going to look at in our lives going forward in the 6, 9 to 1 year. Then we had a gentleman who was the government officer in the government of India, a senior government officer, the most senior position, has retired, a secretary government. He said that police is coming up with a human face, like we are seeing police not only in the US, but other parts of the world. Whereas when we look at movies like Hollywood or Bollywood or other woods which are there, when we see these movies, we see a lot of negative view of the police per se. But here we are seeing for the last 2 months around the globe, that human face factor coming out. The doctors are always perceived to be having the human face. They're considered to be legs to gods. But we never thought of other aspects of life which are coming forth. So there are newer aspects. So, I would like your perspective on what do you think and understand as the how do you go about enhancing this human capital? Although you outline that we need to innovate, we need to look at the risk, but how do you enhance this human capital to have a better understanding of the essence of life and growth?
Yes, that's a very good question, and that depends a lot on our upbringing. That depends a lot on how we look at our inner growth, our inner engineering, how much we have focused on understanding who we are, and how much we have focused on understanding what is the purpose of our life. For instance, I was born and I lived in India up to 27 years. And then I got invited to come to United States. In India, I'm the youngest among 5, brothers and sisters. And my father was a professor in English in India. And my journey, if I, say very briefly, is that, when I came to United States, when I landed here, I had only $100 in my pocket. I was invited to come as a postdoc fellow. And before that in India, when my dad asked me, I got a lecturer's position. So my dad said, okay, now Jayshree, this is great, you be a lecturer, get married, get settled down, and all is good. And I said, yes. No, that is not what I want to do. I want to go for my PhD. And my dad said, that there is no point of doing that. Why do you need to go to another city to do PhD? But I said, no, I want to learn. I want to, grow. So I had a desire. I left my home, which is like how many years back, with 500 Indian rupees. And I went and I, went to another town. I ate rice only for 6 months, because I did not have enough money and I had given the CSIR exam, to get the fellowship. That took some time. But the point is that I had that inner drive. I had that inner drive. I wanted to be something. And I wanted to learn more. I wanted to come to United States, and I didn't purposely come here. I was invited based on my publication that, one editor of the journal was director of an institute. So he called me and said, can you come and start a similar program here? So I said, sure, why not? But the point is that I had that desire to learn more, to, figure out, something bigger than myself, to understand and focus on the bigger problems facing humanity. That is what we are, doing at Risk Group also, that we are not focused on, how to make more money. True. Or how to, get bigger titles and things like that. Our coalition, collectively, all the people that, work with me at Risk Group, we have a single focus to understand and identify what are the problems coming, in front of humanity that would, put the future of humanity at risk. So we are single-mindedly focused on that. But all those things you need to have inner drive. You need to have a purpose in your life. And I think we see that, most of the people, they don't have purpose. And that is where we see a lot of problems during this pandemic, because for them to stay at home, they struggled with that because they didn't know what to do staying at home. They just thought, that going out, hanging out, partying and this and that is, the meaning of life. But they should take this as an opportunity to go inwards and to, understand, to meditate if necessary, because that would calm their minds and, it would give them understanding of what they really need to do to understand the meaning of life. But this is a journey every individual will have to go through on its own. We cannot tell them. By lecturing, nobody's going to learn. I went through my own journey, you went through your own journey, and everyone will have to go through their own journey.
True, I agree. I have two more questions before I open up the house for questions from people, participants here. Now, how do you measure happiness? You outlined beautifully your own life story, telling us how you grew, how it brought in, what was the zeal you wanted to get it up, the urge it was there, and that made you happy, succeed in life. So what you are today, and prospering and growing. Prospering not in terms of balance sheet prosperance, not in terms of profitability, but in terms of the overall satisfaction, whether it is emotional or financial, or in terms of contributing to the world or to the mankind, to the humanity. Now, how does one measure happiness in life? And is this through growth or something else, in your opinion?
That's a really good question. To me, I'm a deeply spiritual person. I am not a deeply religious person. I don't believe in the organized religions, but I'm a deeply, deeply spiritual person. I believe in God, and every morning when I wake up, I know that He has, every second of my life, I know that the reason God has sent me on this earth is because He wants me to take care, achieve certain things, take care of certain things, or, whatever He wants me, He has defined for me, I need to achieve that. And I am very content with what I have every single day. I started my journey when I left my home in India with 500 rupees. When I came to United States with $100, I have started with that, but money has never played a role for me being, happy. That has never been up, on my horizon, that I need this much money to be happy, or I need to have this many titles. When I started Risk Group, a lot of people told me that, why you are an Indian brown woman, you are starting something like this in United States, who is going to listen to you? And I said, why would they not listen to me? If I know what I'm talking about, why would they not listen to me? And I have to tell you, a lot of people talk about facing racism in United States. I have never faced that. I have always been respected. Everywhere I have tried to do something, the doors have opened for me. And I think it is in my nature that, I don't feel unhappy. I am always happy. I am always measuring my life in terms of, small achievements, because, I think that looking at, some big number or some big milestone, people forget to live every single moment. And for me, I'm looking at, all small steps every single day that I, achieve. And that makes me very happy, and that makes me content. So I am quite content with what I have achieved so far. And I am positive that, whatever else I want to do, I will be able to do that, by the time my, life is over on this earth.
True, true. I fully endorse your view, and I'm very happy that you highlighted some of the very key aspects which generally would not have come out, from your heart. The next last two questions, as I said, what can governments, a lot of governments have done various steps, billions and trillions of dollars given out to take care of different industries, different medical fraternity needs, and so on and so forth. Many of them have come out emotionally, tried to connect. Like in India, we see our Prime Minister connecting with people every few days, trying to connect with them, trying to communicate to them, trying to reach the masses at large, not specifically the educated, but the masses at large, the people who are actually about 80% of the total population of this country. Now, and then we have see Japan, we see US, we see UK, we see Europe, which is actually giving out huge chunks, 2 trillion, 2.5 trillion worth of funds with staggered structures. Even RBI the other day has taken up consensus steps for different governments to go forward. They had a structure where WM, where a limit, more like a credit line given to states, which was made at 50,000 in the monetary policies in the recent press release, but enhanced today to about 2 billion rupees immediately, about 2 lakh crore rupees immediately today. So there are various steps being taken. But what, in your opinion, you think the governments could do to, globally, not only in one specific country, but what, in your opinion, globally they could do to ensure smooth induction of growth and happy living?
That's a very good question, and I think that's where the governments across nations are struggling, to come up with what is the role for them, especially, as we see people, as industries and businesses are struggling to redefine their role in this, new digital age. Governments are also trying to redefine their new role in this digital age, because there are a lot of things, a lot of services that, people can come up with a new way of providing those services digitally.
Sure.
And the role that government, is likely going to shrink. So that is one, major concern the government has. And the second concern that the big concern the government has is that, as a lot of automation happens and the jobs, start shrinking, how a lot of people are going to be unemployed. So how will they provide some sort of income to those individuals, irrespective of which country they are from? So there are a lot of stocks, I'm sure you are leading in this, is about the universal basic income. But that also brings a challenge, that how do you provide universal basic income, and how do you decide as a government official how much is enough for an individual or a family to live on? So we have, at Risk Group, proposed several things on that while you are focused on universal basic income, government, we also have to come up with new ways that every single person can make money, because
Sure.
this is new digital age. So instead of giving away our data for free, let's, make sure that we are able to sell our data to the highest bidder. Let's make sure that our genomic data, not just our digital data, but our genomic data also, instead of giving away free to companies like 23andMe, let's make sure that where they benefit by using our data and coming up with new products and services, solutions based on our, data, that they have to pay in us. So we don't have to, depend on just government, but government alone, if we talk about them right now, it's a very challenging time because of this pandemic. So they will have to inject a lot of money, into each of their businesses and systems, so just to make sure that they stay afloat. But their government's vital role is in shaping the goals of their respective nations,
Sure.
and they have to come up with good policies that support innovation and risk taking in, all different industries. And I mean, if we look at United States, risk taking here is so, it's just very common. Nobody
Sure.
worries about it. But in countries like India, I read once a story, I forgot the name of the gentleman, but there was a company, and, he was leading the company, and he couldn't meet the creditors' expectations, so he committed suicide.
Right.
I'm not coming up with the name, but I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. But that showed that, how fragile the Indian systems are,
True.
that, and how fragile the Indian entrepreneurs mentality is, that if you fail in a, innovation or entrepreneurship in your venture, you don't need to commit suicide. That is, everybody fails. You start a business, that there is no guarantee that that is going to succeed. So the government has to come up with a proper infrastructure so people don't feel suffocated. People don't feel that, if they fail in a business, that is the end of their life and they have to commit suicide. That is a very, very, it was very shocking when, that story broke on all the, newspapers here in United States, because that is not the meaning of entrepreneurship. So the government has, in countries like India and, every other country, that are trying to compete with the Western world, they will have to come up with the proper, supporting role. Government will have to come up with a lot of policies that will provide that supporting framework, and the manner in which all these policies will be shaped,
True.
it will determine the behavior and success of nation's innovation engine. And if we think about India, we have such enormous brain power. Look at all the Indians that are the CEOs in United States, from IBM to Google to Microsoft. All of these are, Indian CEOs.
True.
But why are we not coming up with successful, $1 trillion or $1 billion ventures in India? So there is something that everybody has to collectively, come up with, some brainstorming sessions, that where we are failing, what, support system we are not providing, what we need to do for our nation's innovation engine, that entrepreneurs are able to take risk and they're able to. Most important is, it's not even just entrepreneurship, starting businesses, but coming up with new ideas and imagination, because that will start the entire innovation engine. If you are afraid to dream, if you are afraid to come up with new ideas, if you're afraid to come up with new imagination, then you are not going to be able to create new things. And
Correct.
that is where, we need to provide that structure and physical and virtual infrastructure and support system, so that, people can they don't need to be afraid to dream about what they want to do, or some new way of doing things.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And I'm going to step over the time by about 10, 15 minutes, because we have you here and such going on interesting. I wanted also your advice, if you could have, to the youth and the students. As we've been discussing, we found the problem of plenty is now growing over the world. And the other problem is the digital invasions in our life, which is even enhancing this problem of plenty for everything what we do. Now, given that, what is your advice to the youth and the students? As you have seen life both in India as well as in the US, and apart from you connected with the rest of the world, but these both places, I feel you have spent the most time of your life, and you have seen both parts of these worlds. You've seen the youth, you have seen your children grow up and seen the kind of complexities which come up with youth and the kind of challenges they're facing. Not that they're all wrong, it's just that they have a different environment as what we had when we were young kids. Now, given that, what is your advice to the youth and students when they look at life and growth tomorrow, and how do they go forward with it?
I'm glad you asked that question, because I remember once I came to India. Before I give my answer, I want to give that example that when I came to India to speak at few universities, I was on one of my panel, there was a military professional. I don't want to give the name here, but he would go and he would, start speaking about Pakistan, and we need to destroy Pakistan. Let's have a war with Pakistan. And he would, start firing up all the youth about, let's, pick up arms and, go after Pakistan. And the students, these are bachelor students, master students.
Yes.
At each of these universities, they got carried away and they started clapping and they got all pumped up. And then after that gentleman, I went to, give my turn came to speak it. So I said, whatever he said, forget about it, because you need to understand what risk you are facing. Is Pakistan a risk that you are facing?
Correct.
Or the risk that you are facing is that, all your systems, all your processes, all your business models, everything is at risk. While you are, thinking about destroying Pakistan, you are not thinking about, what new way of doing things are emerging, not just, in other countries, but it's coming here, on your doorsteps. And before you know, all the businesses and all the industries that you depend on for your jobs and everything is going to get destroyed. So we need to keep things in perspective. So for youth, I always tell them that since the questions are emerging about whether our planet will be habitable for future generations, whether we will survive as a species, it is or whether we will survive as a nation, it is time to leave behind the old tribal thinking and adopt a civilization thinking. And since humanity is one single tribe and civilization that we need to protect, we need to secure the continuity of our species beyond our planet and beyond our nation. So that requires us to think beyond ourselves or our religion or our culture and nationality. And to be able to think beyond ourselves starts with keeping an open mind that is grounded in rationality and evidence. And forward facing futuristic optimism is all about being excited about the future in an informed and national, in a rational way. So I always tell the students, that reach out to me and, send emails that what they should do. So I tell them, pick a problem that matters to you or your nation or the, or your community or human species, and use emerging technologies to find a way to a solution. There are so many problems that need to be solved. Get behind solving problems. We at Risk Group would
Correct.
love to extend all our help to anyone across nation that is passionate about solving problems. So feel free to reach out to us. You all are the coming tomorrow, and human civilization is counting on you. Humanity is counting on you. So don't fight the wrong battles. Fight the right battles for
Correct.
your sake, for community's sake, and for your nation's sake, and for the humanity's sake.
Thank you. I'm very happy that you took this example, because we see these kind of unfortunate motivated speeches which develop more hatred and actually enhance the risk. And it's an unwarranted risk. It's not something which is worth for. What are we actually debating about? And that's a big question. And the youth typically gets carried away in various universities, colleges across the country, even outside at times. So we have these few questions which had come up. I'll request others who want to ask a question if they can raise their hands. I know 2-3 people have requested me. So I see Dr. Ankit Kumar was there, but he seems to have left. I can't see him in the participant as of now. So I'll ask the question which he had put forward. And he was saying that, on one side, we were seeing environmental risk before, and now we are seeing environment blooming. And how do we now balance this again once the restrictions of lockdown or restrictions in terms of operations goes back to normalcy?
So what was the question?
He
Once
says
the
that
restriction.
earlier we were having this environmental risk, where there were issues raised about environment, even in the UN, and every organization which is talking about countries were working on development, ministries were created in various governments of water, in India, water, of environment, and so on and so forth. On the other side, now we are seeing the environment blossoming. Everywhere around the world, the levels have gone well. The rivers have become clean in India. We get these updates almost in newspapers every day, photographs, beautiful photographs coming forth. We see animals, we hear birds chirping, which we've forgotten to hear. Now, this has happened. Now, this is it, when we are having lockdown, restrictions in terms of operations, this we are seeing. But now, once lockdown is over, would we go back to the normalcy which we are having and have the same problems again? Where do you see that balance coming up?
There will be balance. This is all, we cannot be to clean the environment. It is, I mean, irrespective of whether it's soil, air, water, or even space, we cannot expect to keep humans, in home. We have to, we have to keep going. We have to go out. We have to live. At the same time, the point is that, yes, I have seen many of those images on Twitter, trending that, how clean the water looks, that you can see the Himalayas. Yes, that is all very welcoming, but we should not forget that it is within our power to clean all the environment. The advances in nanotechnology are giving us enormous potential. There are so many new innovations emerging that you can clean the water, using the nanotechnology. You can clean the air, using nanotechnology. There are many, many new amazing technologies coming our way. So we should use those technologies. There is no doubt that we have to clean the environment, because, without that, we live in a human ecosystem is made of particles, and the more there is pollution, the more particles are in there, in our environment. So we breathe more, and we everything impacts us, that particle balance. And because particles and electrical charges, everything, impacts our human ecosystem, or not just human ecosystem, but all living things, all living beings. So yes, we do need to keep, our environment, human environment clean. So let's use the technology. There is no need to feel frustrated that once, we all start living again, this the stay home order expires, everyone
True.
will start going out, that the pollution will happen again, and then the systems will be the same. That may be temporary, but there are many innovators I know that are working on coming up with really good solutions to clean the soil, to clean the air, to clean the water. And we should join their efforts. And I have no doubt that our human ecosystem is going to be very clean in the coming years, and nanotechnology will be at the center of it.
No, I agree with you. It's interesting to see the way, things are developing. And in fact, there was a news which came up today only, where about 5 or 6 foreign party people have been living in Haridwar, and their stay got extended, and they had no money to give out the hotels because they were prepaid. They started living in a cave in near Haridwar, and they were drinking Ganga water. And for last 25 days, they survived very well with no infection or anything, by people having actually to drink, Bisleri bottles. So from that perspective, I'll now request Dr. Yamini to ask the question, and then I'll go to Dr. Junzo Watada, who had also wanted to ask a question. So I'll ask Dr. Yamini to first ask the question, and then we go to Dr. Junzo Watada.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Jayshree. It was a pleasure hearing you. I just wanted to ask, how do you feel with the risk metrics or the means of measuring risk would change with the new pandemic that has come in, especially for the organizations which would be hit hardest, like the financial institutions or the many companies which are not able to sell at the moment or produce at the moment, and would lose the particular sales for during the lockdown or during this particular period.
So the new, you are talking about, your question is about, we need to come up with new risk metrics or new way of measuring risk. Is that your question?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Because see, the variables are changing so rapidly. Now, this is not a normal circumstances. The pandemic happening is an existential crisis, is an existential risk to the human species. So all our traditional risk variables that we use to measure the risk, those are not relevant right now. The only thing that is relevant for every business, for every government, for every country is to survive this. So even if that means to print more paper money, that is something, by all means, every country should do that. Because these 4 months, or even if, let's say, if it's 6 months or 1 year, we should just consider that that's a very unusual period. So we cannot measure the risks that are emerging in this time period with the normal, risk variables. So we have to come up with a new way of measuring those risks, and we can talk about that after the session is over. But yes, that is a good question, that how do we measure that? We do need to come up with a new risk metrics. But again, these are unusual circumstances, and we cannot use the standard models of measuring risk. So, but that is a very good question, Yamini.
Thank you. I'll now go to Dr. Junzo Watada, if he can kindly ask his question as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. A very nice talk. My question is quite simple. Can we escape from geopolitics? Because cybernetics is invented to beyond the regional limitation, but still we cannot escape from geopolitics. Also, the economy is the same. First, we are making a globalization, but it is not successful. Globalization is based on our country is fast. It is quite geopolitics. Even our happiness is based on geopolitics. How can we do? Can't you have any idea? Thank you.
Yes, that's a very good question. Thank you for asking that. Geopolitics is always going to be there. And the reason is, let's talk from the perspective that first industrial revolution, second industrial revolution, third industrial revolution, in all those time period, the world would see one disruptive innovation, and it would take about 100 years before, or at least several decades before we see another disruptive innovation. Now when one disruptive innovation would come, all the countries would start competing, because every innovation comes with economic power, right? And security power. So every country, every government starts competing for the innovation, so that they can benefit from that. This industrial revolution that we are going through, we are not seeing one disruptive innovation that would happen, and then after that for several months we will not see, or several year we will not see innovation. That is not the case. Here now we are seeing disruptive innovation pretty much every other week or every other month. So if you talk about cyberspace, cyberspace is made of 14 layers of technology. Each of those layers comes with its own power dynamics. So right now, if you see artificial intelligence to blockchain to each of these layers, there is an intense geopolitics going on. If you look at 5G example, what we are witnessing for the Chinese company, or if you look at AI or blockchain, any of those technologies, there is enormous power struggle going on. And why is that so? Because the power, whoever controls that technology is going to control the digital data flow that goes on that. So if it's blockchain or AI, or you talk about 5G, each of that comes with enormous power dynamics. So of course every country wants to own that technology. So we are going to witness enormous power struggle and warfare that is emerging. Now there are the globalization point that you talked about. That's a very good point, because we are right now witnessing digital walls. We are witnessing withdrawal from the globalization. We are countries are moving inwards, and the reason for that is there are several factors playing a role here. This is, I talked about this 3-4 years back with I was talking to a general on risk roundup, and I told him that it is not just about whether we should go for globalization or not, but the technologies that are coming our way, they are so powerful that we would not need for globalization. Because if you talk about 3D printing, if you talk about molecular manufacturing, we don't need, we can print whatever we want right here in our country. If you talk about synthetic biology, which I talked briefly in my remarks, that synthetic biology, now we have an ability to take bits and pieces of genes from anywhere and create an entirely new organism. We can create an entirely new way of doing things, everything right from scratch. So we don't need other countries anymore. And these are just few technologies: 3D printing, synthetic biology, molecular manufacturing. This has fundamentally changed the dynamics of globalization. But what is coming our way is much bigger than that, and that is asteroid mining. That is when we start mining the space mining, asteroid mining, they have trillions of dollars of worth of minerals that we can bring it on our earth. So whichever country succeeds in that, they are going to have enormous resources, and there is going to be enormous imbalances coming our way. So this technology is going to be at the center. It's not just the digital technology, but other technologies, and space mining and asteroid mining, all that is going to play a huge role. So geopolitics is not going to go away. So the countries that are not prepared to benefit in these emerging technologies, what are they going to do? Are they going to just sit back and say that, okay, we are going to just depend on our oil, or we are just going to be content with whatever comes our way? They are going to pick up they are going to pick up all the weapons that they have, traditional weapons. We will see some wars emerging, because countries are not able to compete in this digital age. So there are going to be enormous challenges coming our way. And that is why we all need to keep our eyes towards the future of humanity, because this progress technological progress is not happening only first time. We have had amazing, enormous advances in technology many, many times. But every time we reach certain, milestone, the countries decision makers cannot work together. They, wars start and, everything goes backwards. So here we are also witnessing a lot of rich people, they're buying a lot of land, because they are thinking, futuristic, that if things fall apart, then we may have to go back to, making our own food, growing our own food in our farms. So we have to be prepared from every scenario, but these are very, very precarious time. We have to be prepared for every scenario. And I hope that our decision makers, not only in governments, but industries and, academia, everybody is mindful about what challenges are coming our way. Because if we are not aware of what is coming our way, how will we prepare our next generation? So these are very, very complex time. And I hope you read my book, because you will find a lot of answers about geopolitics of cybersecurity. We have explained all the layers of cyberspace and where all the risks are emerging. So I hope you get a chance to read that, because that will give you a lot of understanding about what threats are coming our way.
Yeah, Jayshree, there are two more questions before we end for today. We've already overseen our time. We have Mr. Mohammad Alim Khan, which I'll open up now, and then I'll request Mr. Manoj Agarwal, who's raised multiple times, to ask. Manoj is also the editor-in-chief of one of the leading banking magazines called Banking Frontiers. But before that, I'll request Mr. Mohammad Alim Khan to kindly, ask his question.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes,
yeah, it's a good to have you here and talking about the cyber space. So that is why I got curious and I thought I must ask a question to avail of this opportunity to listen from you. Now, you say that in the cyber space, there are power structures and the power structures are trying to catch hold of the, the essentials of power in their favor, something like that, which I feel is something comparable to the feudal society, where every feudal lord had watching its holdings and also the people or the labor working on it. And there used to be fight between the feudal lords if one labor migrated from one holding to another holding. Now, in the whole process, while the feudal lords got in, richer and richer and richer, but the labor which was working on that holding was basically surviving on the basic minimums. So similarly, the people, the educated people who are probably hooked on to these social media and creating data, now their data and their time and their energy is just being compensated in the form of some sort of an entertainment or a sundry bit of knowledge. While the masters of these cyber holdings, they are making billions and millions. Now, I'm just wondering whether the civic society is able to generate any instrument beyond the corporate social responsibility so that the common people who are getting hooked on to willy-nilly, knowingly, unknowingly, and investing their time, energy, and intellectual capability. So I thought you might like to react to this scenario comparison.
No, absolutely. And I think you gave a great example. Thank you for asking that question, because this is a challenge that we are not witnessing only in India. It's also in America and many other Western countries. But young people, they are so hooked to, social media. They would be always on social media. Every single thing that happens, they wake up, they brush their teeth, what they eat, everything they have to post on social media. It's a meaningless, waste of time. So yes, there is need to educate and create awareness that what we are facing as a country, what challenges we are facing as a country, what our industries and businesses and products and services and models and systems, what are the challenges coming our way. Unless we create that open dialogue with our future generation, with our next generation or our youth, they will not understand the gravity. And I have grown up in India. I know how, the mentality of, young people is, they are carried away, the accountability, the responsibility. There are a lot of things that I do not see in India. One thing that I see when I moved to America and when I see here, once the student goes to college, after that, how responsible those students become, that I have not seen in India. It is like, they grow up so quickly once they go to college, and they are, responsible for their own survival. They're responsible for, making their own living. In India, one big challenge that I see is that, youth and the kids growing up, even they're 30 years old, 40 years old, with their own families, they still depend on their parents for, a lot of times for their survival. So that responsibility, accountability is not there. The desire that I need to make it on my own is not there in a lot of, young people in India. So the driving force, if it's not there, when they wake up, they don't have the desire that I need to make a living for myself and for my family. They are, always going to be distracted by just having this superficial friends on, social media, and, wasting their time. So I think there is a need for greater education and awareness, because I do see that, that challenge facing Indian youth, that they are very distracted. Their focus is not on what they need to do, where they need to focus, what new ideas they need to come up with, where they need to, innovate. Because the brain power that we have, the mathematics, power that we have in India, using that, we could be leading the world in AI. In artificial intelligence, we could be actually leading that industry, but we are not. And that is a shame for India, because, we are missing that huge opportunity. With the brain power that we have and the technical skills that we have, we could be leading the AI sector. We could be coming up with so many new businesses in AI, with so many new models of, using the artificial intelligence, but we are not. And that's because our youth are distracted. They are distracted by social media. They are distracted by, the false warfare with Pakistan. So there are forces in India for their living. They are, encouraging this kind of, thought process in youth, in the college students, and they actually are on the TV all the time. They make speeches everywhere. So they are destroying the youth, the mind of our youth. And that is something we seriously need to, think about, how we can come up with new ways that we can prevent all this influence, negative influence on our youth, so that we can compete as a country. Because if we miss this opportunity, we will never be able to catch up.
I agree. Last question for today by Dr. Manoj Agarwal. I'm unmuting him. Dr. Manoj Agarwal, please.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, a little louder.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jayshree, for that session, for that discussion. The initial part where you forayed wide and deep into space and time was really an eye-opener when you put in technology into that perspective. I actually want to do the reverse. Instead of going far and wide, my question is going right inside the brain. Whatever kind of information we get, whatever kind of analysis we get, even though all human beings have the same kind of brain and mind, we just can't agree on any one thing. On every topic, there are 5 or 10 different ideas,
Sure.
At least 2 ideas, if not more, right? And I see that this variation of ideas of that final analysis on any topic, any issue, is as a huge concern, as a huge risk actually. Because we just can't get alignment. Ants and camels and dogs can get aligned, but human beings can't get aligned. And we call ourselves civilization. As a risk management expert, what do you see as some kind of tool or technology or methodology or formula to increase alignment? Because without alignment, we'll still keep fighting for the rest of humanity's life. Any risk management solution?
That's a very good question, and there is no risk management solution here, but there will be technology solution. Let me explain that. Because if you see, the advances in quantum physics are going to give us amazing new capability of understanding, or giving us an insights into quantum entanglement, and how the fact is one, but how two individuals will see two different outcome from that. So each one of us, our human brain, our human mind, the way the neurons are wired, we all are looking at things. The data point object is the same in front of us, but we are coming up with different conclusions. And that is because of the, way our brain is wired. And now, there is no risk management solution that can work on this, but there will be, neural technologies are advancing amazingly. There are brain technology advances are coming our way that will help us, in a lot of ways. Because as far as, knowledge, we will be just able to upload the knowledge. So even if, let's say, the students have not got an opportunity to learn a lot of different subjects that could help them innovate, or that could help them, understand things in a better way, we will be able to upload all that knowledge, in a rapid manner in the coming, years, especially with the chip. We can put a brain chip inside, or we can have, many different ways we will be able to upload the knowledge. So all these, different subjects, economics and, mathematics and all that we want to, teach kids, and some people are not good, we'll be able to actually, help them by uploading the knowledge. But at the same time, the big problem is not about the knowledge. The big problem is using that knowledge that is either in our brain or in the books or in front of us, how to use that knowledge and how to come up with new ideas and innovation, and how can we imagine new things. So that imagination process, that new way of coming, visualizing something. Right now we have one way of how we are managing risk. Right now we have one way governments are, managing the economic security risk of the country. Is there another way we can do it? Is that the only way we can do it? So those are the questions we have to start asking, that is this the only way we can, manage this problem, or we can manage this solution? Or is there any better way using the tools and technology? So once we start asking the questions, then the ideas will come that yes, there is another better way to do it. And then we will imagine what that solution would look like. And when we imagine, we can use all different technologies that are, available to us, and we will be able to come up with, new effective ways. So education industry, we will see that there are a lot of advances that are going to happen in the coming years. And especially if this pandemic lasts a little longer, then we will see new models emerging in the education industry, because academia will have to come up with new ways of teaching the students, because the campus classes may not happen if there is a second wave, and if this, continues for a long time, we'll have to come up with a new way. So we have to start visualizing. First, we have to identify what problems we are facing as a country. Then we start visualizing what could be better solution. Then we come up with new ideas, we come up with new imagination, and we come up with new solutions. So it is all possible, but this is not a switch that we can turn on and off. There is a process that will need to be involved, and we will need to have, a lot of work that we will have to do to train our young people, to train our senior citizens, also to train adults, because everyone will need to go through the education. It's not just about youth, because even 40 years, 50-year-old whose businesses and whose jobs will disappear because of the automation, they will need to learn new skills, and we will need to come up with new ways of teaching them, training them, so that they can survive. They will have a new way of making money, because otherwise, once the automation starts and the jobs start going away, it's going to be very challenging for many, many people in every country.
Thank you, Jayshree. I think it's been a very interesting session. I think very absorbing, a lot of new ideas, a lot of new questions. There's still about 5-6 hands which have popped up in the last 10 minutes, but given that we have already overstepped our time by about half an hour or so, and I know it must be around 1:30 in the US as of now, and it's already very late. We've taken a large chunk of your sleep time, which is very important, because that's an important risk to human life as well. And I hope you balance that out in today and in yesterday and tomorrow's sleep. Thank you very much to enlighten us on this issue of life and growth and the essence to it, and clubbing it with the way risk looks at it, coming from the financial angle, coming from other components, geopolitical components. And I'm happy, and we'll be very happy to, even look further on the geopolitical book, which you have said. We'd like to purchase it for our library as well, and also, write about it. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank all participants who have been here with us. Some of them came and went, but then it's the way net works at times in most places around the country and around the world. And I'm happy that we are able to have a very productive and very important session. We're going to keep this video, which we're recording, on our YouTube channel as well as on our Facebook. We're planning to go live as well. Maybe next week onwards, we'll have all these sessions going live on Facebook and YouTube as well for wider audience who don't need to log in. But till then, will like it here, but they will not be able to ask questions or interact or be part of the whole session. And I'm very happy that you took the time out. Thank you. I'll trouble you for more sessions, not in live, but on other risk-related and finance-related issues as I come from the Institute of Finance. And I'm happy that, you are doing such a great job. Keep up. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you so much, Aman. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. And Yamini, we will, talk about the risk model and metrics at a later time. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, all of you.
Thank you. I'm ending the meeting now. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.